Walters is the place to be this time of year, across the street from Nationals Park and near Audi Field. Open daily from 11 a.m. until 2 a.m., and on the weekends, closing time is at 3 a.m.
Here's Garcia. Louis out of the comebacker in the first, then tripled into the right field corner, scored last time up and swings and lines one to the left field line. It's a fair ball down into foul ground all the way into the corner. Bebas scores. Wood to third will be held there as Garcia pulls into second base. And the Nationals scoring here in the top of the fifth inning have tied this game. It's the Nationals 2 and the Marlins 2. The count is 0-2 and the infield now in the pitch. Swing and little looper center field. Young coming hard. It drops in front for a base hit. Runner held now coming to the plate. The throw in is cut off by Garcia behind the mound. Sliding at first across the plate is Ruiz. And the Marlins have regained the lead. It's Miami 3 and Washington 2. Right-hander to the belt. The kick, here it comes. Swing and a line drive, base hit off a breaking ball into left field. Marcia scored. Here comes Morel. He has scored. Arabelta Hernandez delivers a big blow. A 2-run single to left off a slider. It's a 3-run inning now for the Marlins with 1 out. Now Miami 5 and Washington 2, and Blake Butera out of the Nationals dugout. He's on his way to the mound to make a change.
Picking second will be the Utah Jazz, and that means that the number 1 pick in the 2026 NBA draft goes to the Washington Wizards.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. We hope that all of the moms listening had a happy Mother's Day on Sunday. We hope that all of you listening who are Washington Wizards fans like me are thrilled at our team at last having some good luck in an NBA draft lottery and winning the 2026 NBA draft lottery. No such good luck for the Nats on Mother's Day. A 5-2 loss at the Miami Marlins on Sunday afternoon in a game in which the Nats allowed 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th. The Nats end up losing 2 out of 3 games in this series, in which the Nats did win Game 1. Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now 19-22, 13-9 on the road versus 6-13 at home. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Gray's annual fundraiser, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Back Room in downtown Washington, D.C. at 6 p.m. Coming up later in the show, a special treat, an exclusive report from Jim Callis, senior writer for MLB Pipeline, about several possibilities for the Nats with their number 11 overall pick in the 2026 MLB first-year player draft, which will take place July 11th through the 13th, is taking place in Philadelphia. The Nats on Monday have an off day for a 3rd consecutive Monday. We hope that they enjoy that off day. We hope that you enjoy that off day, because the Nats then have a stretch of 16 consecutive days with no scheduled off days, May 12th through the 27th. The Nats' next scheduled off day after Monday is Thursday, May 28th. But Mark, you look back at this series at the Marlins, and I said this about Game 2, but I really feel like this applies to the series in its entirety. We in this series saw the best of the Nats, and we saw the worst of the Nats. We saw the best of the Nats. We saw the offense do some really good things. We saw the Nats' 2 best starting pitchers this season do some really good things, Foster Griffin, Cade Cavalli. But we also saw some of the worst of the Nats in terms of some of the bad pitching in the series, some of the outs on the base paths in the series, some of the bad defense in the series. And ultimately, what was a more than winnable series ends up being a losing series for the Nats.
Almost like the weekend series was written by Charles Dickens, huh? Tale of 2 teams that we saw out there. I agree. This is a completely winnable series. Even if they weren't going to win all 3, you figured they should win one of these last 2. They were in position to do it both times. And to me, in each case, it's about a lack of execution late in the games, that in terms of defense, in terms of relief pitching, a little less so on the offensive side, although they just didn't really do much offensively the final innings of this game. But I mean, this one was there for the taking, and they once again just did not play clean baseball, I'll put it, at the end there of what was a completely winnable game. And I understand that, every game is tough, every opponent is tough. No guarantees of winning on the road, but they should feel like they should have won this series. Given how well they've played on the road this year, they should have felt like they should have won this series.
Absolutely. The Nats in so many ways are outperforming what so many expected this season. And so, that kind of can work against you, right? Because we are looking at these games and being like, how come the Nats aren't getting more wins? These games are winnable. The Nats are putting themselves in position to win these games, but there still are real major significant flaws with this team. And it feels like lately some of those flaws have become even more glaring. Even as the pitching overall lately has been better, the defense really is coming up as an issue game in, game out. And, with the base running, yes, there are some things about the base running that have been good. But again, as we've seen in recent years, outs on the base paths, 2 more significant outs on the base paths in this game. So the Nats on Sunday afternoon, just 2 runs, 6 hits, though 4 of the hits were extra base hits. The Nats had a triple, 3 doubles, and 2 singles. Also worked 3 walks, but 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Marlins starting pitcher Sandy Alcantara, 2 runs in 6 innings. Of course, not the first time over the years that the Nats have had some problems with Alcantara, but the outs on the base path. So James Wood, as the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 1 for 4 with a double. He in the top of the first had a leadoff opposite field double off the left field warning track, but he in running on contact on a fielder's choice tapper by Brady House to Alcantara got tagged out in a rundown between third base and home plate for the second out.
House using a pink bat as well. Here's the pitch. And a swing, and they squibber back to the mound. Wood breaks for the plate. Throw to the catcher. He's in a rundown now.
I think we understand the play. You run on contact, but I think we also understand that you're allowed to reverse course. And I know Wood's a big guy, so it's not necessarily easy, but he ends up getting caught in a rundown there. And then Nasim Nuñez, he was the Nats starting shortstop in this game. CJ Abrams served as the DH. Nuñez, as the Nats number 9 batter, 0 for 1, 2 walks, top of the third, drew a 1-out walk, stole second base, and then got thrown out in an attempt to advance to third base on a pitch that got away from the Marlins catcher, Joe Mack.
Now the set at the belt. Nuñez a decent lead, and he's not running. The pitch is a breaking ball in the dirt, squirts away. Now he breaks for third. The throw by Mack is going to be there. And did he miss the tag? No, he's out. Nuñez pointing to the dugout.
And Nuñez made the second out. Manager Blake Butera challenged the call of Nuñez being out, but the call was upheld. What'd you think about those outs on the base paths by Wood and Nuñez?
So the first one, it is the contact play, and that's called from the dugout, and so it's the runner's responsibility to go on contact. I just wish there was more leeway there. And whether that's on the coaching staff being adamant about it or whether there is some room for the runner to actually read the play, I get the concept of it. You're trying to force the defense to make a play, but I feel like way too often this kind of stuff happens where you're just running into an easy out, especially on a ball back to the pitcher. I've got to believe that James Wood has the instincts to read that off the bat, at least freeze for a second and recognize, okay, it's right back to the pitcher. I take 2 steps back to third base. I'm fine. Even if the batter's out, no harm done. I'm still on third base. And instead, he's caught no man's land with no chance of scoring. If it gets past the pitcher, okay, you're forcing the infielder to make a throw. But on a ball right back to the pitcher like that, I just don't understand why there isn't leeway. And again, I don't know the specifics here of, are they being coached? You're running on contact. It doesn't matter. So there's no opportunity for the player to make that decision, whether it's that, or is there some leeway for them to read that play themselves? Either way, it's just a bad out, and you don't like to see that happen. The Nuñez one, it's just kind of being over aggressive. I get it. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. He had already stolen second. He's got a chance to get to third. You see a ball in the dirt and your first instinct is to go. It didn't get as far away from the catcher as you would have hoped, and he ends up getting thrown out on a very close play that you could see from the replay angles. It might have been one of those, if he's called safe in live action, that call stands. Because it was called out right away, they couldn't overturn it. The only part I don't like about that, and I think we have seen this happen some other times as well, James Wood is at the plate. He can get you in from second base. You don't have to get to third necessarily to score with James Wood at the plate. So maybe a little bit of hesitation knowing who the batter is there. But I have less a problem with that. For such a fast runner, balls in the dirt, you'd rather be aggressive with it. I have more of a problem with the contact play in the first inning.
Outs at third base are so painful, and that you had at least one, and then the Wood one. I mean, I don't know if you want to count that as an out at third base or home, but whatever. It's a rundown between third base and home plate. And, you get a leadoff double in the top of the first. And we've seen the Nats do so many good things in first innings lately. Here you have a leadoff double. The run expectancy, when you have a runner on second and nobody out, is like through the roof. And that the Nats didn't get a run in that first inning off having been such a potent offense in first innings this season really was surprising. The Nats in this game scored a run in the top of the fourth, a run in the top of the fifth. The Marlins in this game, 2 runs bottom of the third and 3 runs in the bottom of the eighth.
Come support the DC Grays on Monday, May 18th at the annual Cigars and Curveballs fundraiser at 6 p.m. hosted by Tom Lavero. Come hang out with fellow local baseball fans and feel free to participate in the not-so-silent auction and hear more about the 2026 DC Grays summer season in the Cal Ripken Senior Collegiate Baseball League. The DC Grays proudly promote participation of intercity baseball with no registration fee for teams from underserved neighborhoods. Cigars and Curveballs is held at Shelley's Back Room in downtown DC, right near Metro Center at 1331 F Street. Shelley's is the best cigar bar in DC. The players on the DC Grays are college players from across the country. There will be information on how to become a host family at this event. To pre-register, visit dcgrays.com/cigars or show up on the fly on Monday night, May 18th at Shelley's at 6 p.m.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Playoff hockey is a different level. Every moment is packed with energy, and you never know what will happen next. It's kind of like when the Nationals have a runner on second and a chance to score, but the outcome is totally up in the air. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with legends like Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action and Paul Bissonnette keeping things fun. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger. Don't miss a shift. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
And the pitch. Swinging a ground ball to short. Nuñez has it go right through his legs. He got fooled on it. Runner at third. Edwards will score. And over to third is Hicks as the ball played back in. Some miscommunication in the outfield as well. And on the error, the Marlins take a 2-0 lead. That one a tailor-made double play ball, but it scooted on Nuñez and went right through his legs.
So there is the base running, and then there is the defense. And again, it's coming up more and more. And it feels like every game now we have multiple instances of bad Nats defense or questionable Nats defense. The Nats, in terms of overall team defense, whether you want to go basic or advanced, not rating well at all. So we look at Cade Cavalli. And Cade Cavalli overall, I thought, did well. 2 runs, 5 2/3 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. He did issue 3 hit by pitches, but only gave up 4 hits, all of which were singles. 95 pitches, 58 strikes, 37 balls. Bottom of the third, he allowed 2 runs on 2 singles, a walk, and a fielding error by shortstop Nasim Nuñez, who on a 1-out first pitch routine grounder by Otto Lopez with runners at the corners completely whiffed in attempting to field the grounder, which should have resulted in an inning-ending double play, a run scored on the play. And the second of the 2 singles in the inning was a 1-out first pitch RBI single by Liam Hicks to right field on a line drive that got past first baseman Luis Garcia Jr., a lunging Luis Garcia Jr. And I want to give Kevin Franzen a lot of credit here. So this game was an NBC Universal telecast, aired on Peacock, aired on NBC Sports Network, but Franzen served as an analyst for the game, and Franzen right away pointed out that Garcia was late to get ready for that play, that he wasn't like properly set, properly prepared for that play, and so the ball ended up getting by him. for that RBI single. So some really good analysis and also honesty from Franzen, but also more bad defense by the Nats in that spot. And, the Nats ultimately only scored 2 runs in this game, and Cavalli only gave up 2 runs in his outing. But the defense, again, popping up here.
Yeah, real quick, I liked the broadcast having analysts who cover both teams regularly. Franzen covering the Nationals and Jeff Nelson covering the Marlins. NBC has done that with their broadcast this year. I think that brings a different and, frankly, good perspective. So often when you watch these national broadcasts, you're thinking to yourself, these guys don't know the teams. They don't know anything about these guys. And so it was kind of refreshing to hear some real intelligent talk between the two of them. All right, enough about that. Let's talk defense. Yeah, the Garcia play, yes. And we know he's still learning first base. And also, frankly, he's not a great defensive player, never has been, probably never will be. On the Nuñez one, and you heard Franzen also point out that the grounder he thought hit the lip between it's not grass, it's artificial turf and the infield dirt. And so he's expecting it to hop up to him and it ends up skipping under his glove. So I get it. Maybe there's some excuse there for that. To me, though, what are you always taught as an infielder? Keep your glove on the ground. It's easier to come up. If it bounces up, you can knock it down still than to go back down, let it go between your legs. Now, I get it. Maybe he's reading what's going to be a high hop off the spongy artificial turf. But I feel like somebody as talented as he is, you're better off positioning yourself too low and coming up on the ball than trying to get back down on the bad hop. I just think there's a lot of irony in this game in general. For the first time, one of the only times this year, C.J. Abrams is the DH. And so that gives Nasim Nuñez the opportunity to play shortstop. We know Abrams has been struggling at shortstop. He was a big reason they lost the game on Saturday. So you say, okay, Nuñez, clearly the better defender, finally gets his chance to play shortstop. And what happens? He commits what goes down as a pretty bad error that made a major difference. That should be an inning-ending double play, get Cavalli out of it. Instead, prolongs the inning, scores a run. Maybe there's some unusual circumstances that it was a bit of a fluky play, but you would have liked to think that the Nuñez for Abrams swap for this day would have benefited the team, and instead it didn't do that at all.
And Abrams in a game for which he was the Nats starting DH, a game in which he could focus solely on batting, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. So this didn't work out at all for either party, Nuñez or Abrams. And then also under the category of bad or at least questionable Nats defense, so Gus Varland, who had looked so good lately, he allowed 3 runs in a third of an inning. As mentioned, the Marlins in this game, a big 3-run eighth. Varland issued a 1-out 8-pitch walk of Kyle Stowers, issued a 1-out 4-pitch walk of Jacob Marcy, gave up a 1-out RBI single by Christopher Morel to center field on an 0-2 pitch, gave up a 1-out 2-run single by Heriberto Hernandez to left field for a 5-2 Marlins lead. But also in the inning was the Marlins pulling off 2 double steals on Varland and catcher Drew Millas. Varland as a pitcher was not good, but man, those 2 double steals were tough to take.
Yeah, absolutely killers. And it starts to me with Varland. First of all, back-to-back walks to get himself into trouble. But I think the second walk was a product and part of him being so worried about the runner, Ruiz. He picked over twice, obviously not getting him. And as they kept mentioning on the broadcast, you're just encouraging the guy to go on the third attempt because now you have to pick him off. So it's like he's getting an even better shot at it. Varland is slow to the plate. And it felt to me like his command was off. I don't know if it's because he was obsessed with the runner or not, but that wasn't the typical kind of Gus Varland command that we've seen so far this year. And I have to wonder if the Marlins' threat of running on him played a big role in that. So you have that is involved in there. And then you also have in that inning terrible ABS challenge by Millas. It's on one of the double steals. And yes, I understand that Chris Guccione, the home plate umpire, had a bad sequence there for a couple of innings with a bunch of calls that it seemed like none of them went the Nationals' way. Well, Millas challenges one that had no chance of being right. He burns up their second chance. And now on the double steal, he throws down to third and it's late, but he's also challenging the call because it was clearly a strike down the middle, or he wanted to challenge the call. It's clearly a strike down the middle, but he had burned him up. That would have been strike 3, completely changed that inning as well. I don't know how many times we're going to have to talk about this, but the Nats catchers have been terrible at ABS challenges. And the excuse seems to be that they've gotten so much better at framing that they are more convinced in their own minds that these pitches are strikes. No, know the strike zone. If you're missing just off the edge, okay, fine. That one that Millas got wrong was several inches off the plate, and it cost him because then he couldn't use it on an obvious call later in the game. And then conversely, the next inning at the plate, the Nats probably had two that they should have challenged as hitters and couldn't because they had burned them up earlier in the game. This has got to stop, or it's got to get better. This has become such a major problem for them. You almost wonder if you just have to say stop challenging unless it's something really obvious or unless you're just waiting until the last inning or two of the game. It's really costing them.
It absolutely is. And, the irony of Nats catchers finally being halfway decent at framing is that framing very well may become obsolete if we go to what I hope we go to, which is a full-time ABS system. The home plate umpire, Chris Guccione, was so bad as the game went on that at one point, one of the analysts, I think it was Jeff Nelson, openly wondered if home plate umpires, once a team is out of ABS challenges, actually expand their strike zones, or at the very least are a little more willy-nilly with what they're calling because they know that they can't be challenged on what they're calling. That's how bad Guccione was, that you had one of the in-game analysts actually wondering if Guccione essentially was being bad on purpose.
Not good. And by the way, I can't imagine that would, if any of them are doing that, that's so short-sighted because MLB is still reviewing every single pitch and grading these guys. And so if they're screwing things up, even if they can't be challenged and maybe the public isn't actually seeing that they're being overturned, MLB knows what their percentages are at the end of the day. So I really hope nobody is doing it that way. But you're right. He was bad. And yes, you want perfect umpiring, but the whole point of ABS is to account for those big spots in a game, especially late in a game where a bad ball strike call, and we know it's hard to get them all right, but where a bad one costs your team. Well, here's your chance to finally make up for that. And instead, by challenging borderline calls earlier in the game that aren't that big of a spot, if you don't get it right, you're just killing your chances later in the game when it might really matter. It was arguably 3 times in the final 2 innings of this game that they should have challenged and gotten a call overturned. All of them could have been big calls, and they couldn't do it because they had burned them up earlier.
Yeah, I do think it's a little silly that you have to play fortune teller and decide when you should use a challenge or if you might need a challenge later in the game. Like, to me, just have the system the whole time, get all these calls right, and forget about it. The onus of officiating should not be on the players or on the managers or on the coaches. The onus of officiating should be on the officiating, on the officials. And so I do think this system is a little ridiculous in that regard, but the system is what it is. And so as it is this way, the Nats absolutely need to be better in usage of the challenges. Now, with Varland not doing well, it is worth noting the other 3 Nats relievers in this game did do well. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 3 runs in 2 1/3 innings. Varland was the culprit. PJ Poulin, 1 batter, 1 out. It was a big out. He got Joe Mack to ground out with runners at the corners, 2 outs, and the game tied at 2 in the bottom of the 6th. Orlando Revolta tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th, and Paxton Schultz faced 2 batters and got 2 outs. So it really was only Varland who struggled here in this game. Again, 3 runs in 1/3 of an inning. We touched on Cavalli, but we didn't really do a deep dive on his outing. How'd you feel about how Cavalli did in this game?
Not at his very best, but I think he was good enough to probably deserve a little bit better fate. The weird thing about this one, he was yanking his curveball at one point so much that everybody's getting hit on like the knee or the foot. I think that kind of did him in at the end. It's a sign of how much movement he gets on that pitch, but he was starting it on like the inside corner of the plate and just breaking down and hitting batters. Otherwise, I thought he was pretty good beyond that. Make a better play in the field behind him by Nuñez, and that takes away one of the runs, saves him some extra pitches that he would have thrown. He probably could have at least completed the 6 innings. I thought it was good. Again, not his very best, not his sharpest, but I think a good example of how he can still be effective even on those days when he doesn't have 10 strikeouts and the stuff is just perfectly crisp.
Yeah, and good to see the Nats in this series see Foster Griffin do really well in Game 1 and see Cade Cavalli do really well in Game 3. And technically, the starting pitcher in Game 2 was Richard Lovelady, and he ended up doing quite well as the Nats opener. Also, I want to salute Luis Garcia Jr. So he, in the Game 2 of this series, started a game for the first time since missing 3 consecutive games due to right wrist soreness. He, on Saturday, as the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, 3 for 5, 2-run singles and 2 other singles. Garcia in this game on Sunday afternoon, again, starting first baseman, number 2 batter. We mentioned the questionable defense, but 2 for 4 with a triple and an RBI double. Garcia in the Nats 1-run fourth had a leadoff triple to the right field corner despite having been down at 1.12. Garcia in the Nats 1-run fifth, 2-out first pitch, opposite field, RBI double to left field to tie the game at 2. We are waiting and anticipating who might be the number 3 for this Nats offense with James Wood and CJ Abrams in whatever order you want to put them, the numbers 1 and 2. Who could be the number 3? You know, Brady House, we hope, but he needs to still truly get going. Dalen Lyle, we hope, but he needs to still truly get going. I don't know to what extent Luis Garcia is a candidate for this, but we have seen him get hot at times, and he has looked really good in terms of his batting here these last 2 games.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that he could just pick that right up again after missing. It wound up being almost a week that he was out. So that's good to see that he has been able to get back and get to his old stroke again. I don't know that I put him as the number 3 guy. I think he can get hot for a little bit here or there. I would think out of everybody in that group, Lyle has the best chance at it. We just haven't quite seen it yet. He did hit a double in this game and a single, 2 for 4. We're still not seeing that like gap-to-gap power from him, that down-the-line power that results in doubles and triples, and certainly not seeing a lot in the home run range either for him. I keep waiting for that to happen. I feel like it should, but we do have to remember he's still kind of unproven. He had a great second half last year, but that's it. There's not a lot of track record to go on with him. I think House starting to look a little better after going really through a tough stretch for several weeks. Getting better, but not back to where he was to start the year. I would say out of this group, to me, Lyle is the one who should have the best chance at becoming a legit number 3 option behind Wood and Abrams.
Yeah, I mean, the other Nats hitters who've done well are part-time guys, you know, like Jose Tena or Curtis Mead or Joey Weimer, if you look at the overall body of work. But, you know, we know that Weimer, he really padded those stats with what he did early on. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Curry in the windup. Left leg in the air. He goes home. Fly ball driven deep to right center field. Morabito and Clifford at the gap. Clifford jumps, and it's over his glove for a home run. But Yohandy Morales sends it into the right center field bullpen. Back-to-back games with a home run. 6 on the year for Morales, and it is 2-1 Rochester.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Playoff hockey is a different level. Every moment is packed with energy, and you never know what will happen next. It's kind of like when the Nationals have a runner on second and a chance to score, but the outcome is totally up in the air. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with legends like Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action and Paul Bissonnette keeping things fun. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger. Don't miss a shift. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
Cavalli rocks and kicks and delivers. Swing and a fly ball hit well to left center field. Jacob Young going back to the warning track near the wall, leaping, and Jacob Young makes the catch for the out. Boy, does he have it down, going to his backhand to be able to climb the wall, leap one leg up against the wall to make the catch and come down with it.
Jacob Young in this game as the Nats starting center fielder, number 6 batter, 0 for 4. His OPS down to 592. Remember, he was actually doing fairly well for a while, has really cooled off. But Young in the bottom of the second, 2 nice defensive plays, a leaping backhanded catch against the left center field portion of the wall for a leadoff flyout by Kyle Stowers, and Young a running catch toward the right center field portion of the wall for a flyout by Hernandez for the third out. So as much as we talk about the questionable Nats defense, Jacob Young both via the eye test. And when you look at the stats, again, is excelling defensively. A couple nice plays there, especially that catch on the Kyle Stowers fly out. And he did it in that casual, reassuring way of, I've been here before, I know what I'm doing, and he made the play.
Yeah, I think that's the best part of it, is that he makes it look so easy. Obviously, it's not. But it's because he gets such a good read and jump on the ball off the bat that he is in a position where he's not having to make a real leaping, lunging, last-ditch effort to catch the ball. Most of his great catches are not necessarily the very end of the play where you're saying, oh, he had to go full extension for that. It's because he's already in a good position that he doesn't need to do it. It's the fact that he's able to get there and get to the right spot so quickly that he can make those plays. So that's been nice to see. I want to mention one other defensive thing. This is on the negative side. Brady House. This didn't end up costing them, but it was a weird play in the 6th inning. It was actually at the end of Cavalli appearance. It's runners on first and second. There's a chopper to the left side. He fields it. He easily could have gotten the lead runner out either by tagging him or just running over to step on third base. And instead he threw to first for the out. It didn't cost them in the end, but it left runners on second and third when it could have easily been first and second. And it was just that indecision. It was kind of like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this moment. And I think we've seen a few of these from Brady House already this year. He is capable of making some very athletic plays, but it feels like the ones that are not exactly routine or exactly what you're supposed to do on it, when you have a moment to think and decide what's the proper play here, he's made some bad decisions. And I thought that was one of them. And again, it didn't matter. And he did end up throwing out a runner at the plate, later on in that inning. I think it was the next batter. He threw him out at the plate. So it didn't hurt them in the end, but it was just another one of those, what exactly is he thinking there? Did he not read that play properly to see that there was a much easier out of the lead runner that could have made a big difference in what was a close game?
Yeah, it's tough to tell with some of these defensive mistakes. Are these mistakes that are rooted in lack of ability, rooted in lack of instincts, rooted in lack of communication, either with coaches or with teammates? If we're really drilling down, what are the root causes of the defensive miscues? Are these guys just not good defensive players, or are they guys who are making mistakes that are very correctable to where this can end up being ultimately a team that's halfway decent defensively? I mean, it's hard to know. We're not mind readers. So when these mistakes are happening, we can't always dissect what exactly was the cause of that particular mistake. But there are a lot of possibilities here in terms of why this team with these players, especially lately, is having so many defensive problems.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things, and I'll also throw in inexperience in there. A lot of these guys are still young, and I know Brady House has played third base for several years now, going back to the minor leagues, but there is something to be said for a play comes up that maybe you haven't experienced yet in the major leagues, and you kind of freeze in that moment and take the simple throw to first instead of recognizing that there was an easy out to be made and a more important out to be made. The hope with all of that would be the more you play, the more these kind of situations come up, you store it somewhere in your memory bank. So if it does happen again, you make the correct call, and now you don't make that same mistake twice. It's going to be a while till we see if those things work out. I remember there was a play a week ago or so that he didn't know where to go on the bunt play, on with a little bunt between the mound and third base. And he should have stayed back and waited for the throw. Instead, he charged it and then got caught in no man's land with nothing to do. I think hopefully the more that he sees these kind of plays in the big leagues, the more it registers in his mind and it doesn't become a recurring issue. But I feel like some of what they're dealing with is inexperience. Yes, some of it is talent and ability, and some of it is maybe some of these guys just, aren't that good to begin with.
Some Nats news during the game. The Nats on Sunday afternoon announced that the Philadelphia Phillies had claimed relief pitcher Jackson Rutledge off outright waivers. As you may recall, the Nats this past Tuesday night announced having designated Rutledge for assignment. So he is now officially gone from the organization, as the Phillies have yet another former Nats player in their organization. No game for the Nats on Monday. Next up for them, a 3-game series at the Cincinnati Reds. The Nats have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1, Tuesday evening, 6:40, Miles Mikolas. Game 2, Wednesday evening, 6:40, Jake Irvin. Game 3, Thursday afternoon, 12:40, Foster Griffin. And the Cincinnati Reds, part of a National League Central in which every team has a winning record. Now, the Reds have a bad run differential, so the Reds have vastly outperformed the run differential in having a winning record. But that is one of the real surprises of this season so far, that the National League Central is the mightiest division in the sport right now.
I think at one point, I don't think it's true anymore, but a few days ago, there were only 10 teams in the major leagues with a winning record, and 5 of them were from the NL Central. That is insane. And somebody pointed out that what leads to some of this is the prevalence of interleague play now, where there's a lot more playing back and forth. Okay, if you play your division game, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. So you can't have everybody with winning records. But for whatever reason, the way it's been scheduled, maybe particularly for the NL Centrals, there's been a lot more interleague games or playing the other divisions. They haven't played each other that much yet. And so you end up with a scenario where, like, the American League only had a couple of teams with winning records. The National League had way more, and almost all of them reside in the Central Division. To me, that's a fascinating one because you have a traditional power in the Cubs that are going for it. You have a team that's been very good lately in the Brewers that are very much trying to go for it. You have a Cardinals team that was supposed to be starting a rebuild, and they're actually playing well. And whether that's going to adjust the way they approach the rest of this year or not, I don't know. But they were not supposed to be in the mix for this. And then you have the Reds and the Pirates, 2 teams that have had young talent and haven't really been able to make the most of it. And they are finally deciding, hey, let's go for it. Let's try to do something, particularly in the Pirates case, actually signing some free agents this winter. And so what you really have, I'm not going to say it's 5 teams trying because I'm not sure that the Cardinals are trying, but as the season plays on, they may decide they are trying. And so it's unusual. You don't really have anybody in that division that's sort of conceded from the outset that they're not going for it this year. I'm fascinated to see how that all plays out over the course of the year, especially as they start to play each other a little bit more.
And in the cases of the Cubs, Brewers, and Pirates, all 3 of those teams have good run differentials. So it's not like their records are phony. Like, those teams have been legitimately good. And the other thing, too, is this, and, we're getting sort of ahead of our skis here. But, when we talk about, like, could the Nats potentially make a run at that 3rd wild card spot, right? When you look at the layout of the National League, at least so far, the NL Central has all these teams doing well. You, in the NL West, have 2 teams doing especially well, the Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. We know the NL East has been a big-time disappointment other than the Atlanta Braves, but there are going to be a lot of wild card contenders, it looks like right now, when you look at the Central and the West. And so that's part of the calculus here, too. It's not just, hey, the Nats can actually not be buried in last in the NL East. With the other team struggling, the Nats at various points have been in 2nd place in the National League East. But you have to look at the bigger picture of the league. There are a decent number of other teams doing pretty well here, at least so far.
Yeah, and I think we know that the organization didn't go into this necessarily intending to try to contend this year. And I think it would take something pretty dramatic over the next 2 months for them to change their minds about that. Because of what you said, there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix. I still believe either the Phillies or the Mets are going to push their way into that mix, if not both of them. The Phillies have played a lot better here lately. The Mets still kind of trying to figure that out. You take that, the fact that the Braves seem to be running away with the division, all the Central teams being good, and at least 2 and probably 3 teams in the West that are going to be in the mix. I don't think there's a very likely scenario that the Nationals, even if they're hovering around 500, I think that's going to be too much to ask for. And so my guess is that Paul Taboni and company are going to stick with the plan, no matter what the record might look like, even if they outperform a little bit. But I'll tell you what, if they did have any visions of trying to be a surprise wildcard contender, what would help a lot? Don't lose 2 of 3 against the Marlins. Win at least one of those 2 games that were winnable over the weekend. If you want to be a contender, you got to win one of those 2 games.
And as we have seen during the life of this podcast, the Marlins far from a guarantee in terms of a beatable opponent for the Nats. The Nats have had their problems with the Marlins when you look at recent years. By the way, I'm always dubious of firing the manager to turn things around, but the truth about the Phillies is since they fired Rob Thompson and elevated Don Mattingly to interim manager, the Phillies have been a lot better. So, causation, correlation, I'll let you figure that out. But that is interesting how that has worked out. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Gray's annual fundraiser, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Backroom in downtown DC at 6 p.m. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast. And we leave you now with an exclusive report from Jim Callis, one of the top authorities on the planet when it comes to the MLB draft. He's a senior writer for MLB Pipeline, and he's about to educate us on several possibilities for the Nats with their number 11 overall pick in the 2026 draft. Enjoy.
With the first pick of the 2025 MLB draft, the Washington Nationals select Eli Willits, a shortstop from Fort Cobb Broxton High School in Fort Cobb, Oklahoma.
It's a little bit different, actually a lot different for the Nationals in the first round of the draft this year. They're not picking number 1, they're picking 11th. So they're dependent on other teams to see who falls to them. The way this draft is shaping up, I don't think that there's going to be a high school pitcher who fits at 11. I don't think there's going to be a high school hitter who really fits at 11 unless the Nationals really push somebody up the board. And there's probably not going to be a college pitcher who fits. So I think by default, that leaves college hitters. I'm going to give you 5 guys who are a possibility right now for the Nats at number 11. I'm going to give them to you in the order we've ranked them on MLB Pipeline's recently released an updated top 150 prospects list. First is Sawyer Strohsnyder from Texas Christian. He's an outfielder, 6'2", 200. Some of the best all-around tools in the college class, huge raw power, chance to play center field. There's A.J. Garcia of Virginia, who's one of the more polished hitters in the college class, makes very good swing decisions and a lot of contact. It's more average power. He has a chance at center field, maybe, but probably more of a corner guy. Chris Hakopian of Texas A&M has some of the best hitting metrics. Some teams say the best hitting metrics in this draft. Very good bat-to-ball skills, very good zone control. It's probably average power. The position's a little bit of a question. You hope second base, it might be left field. Then there's Derek Curiel of Louisiana State. He started as a freshman on the College World Series Championship Club. Fluid left-handed swing. He's a very good hitter. The power has not come as hoped from scouts. It's probably more 12 to 15 homer power than 20 plus. He has helped his cause by showing he can play center field this season, though. And then the last name I want to throw at you is Ryder Helfrich, who's a catcher from Arkansas. He's the number 2 catcher in this draft behind Von Lackey from Georgia Tech. And Helfrich is better than Lackey defensively. He's a very advanced defender. He calls pitches, which is rare in the college game. He runs his staff well. It's plus arm strength. The receiving, the framing, the blocking skills are all there. He is a power over hit guy, but it might be 20 homer power. So there's 5 candidates for the Nationals at number 11.
Down the line, that's going to be extra bases for Strohsnyder. Takes a wicked carom off the wall, and he's going to go for 3. Strohsnyder looking for his 10th triple, and he's got it, standing up.